What's the difference between knowing the story and knowing it in details?
AlMaghrib Institute presents Q&A with Kamal Elmekki.
Most of us, since birth, know the story of when Jibreel ﷺ came to the Prophet ﷺ in the cave. Now, most scholars believe that this incident happened on the 27th of Ramadan, which means for 27 long days, the Prophet ﷺ never heard the voice of another human being, never spoke to anybody, and you can imagine how quiet it was in that cave. Because back then, cities, they didn't have engines and motors and these loud things, so it was very quiet at the top of that hill inside that cave. And if a man was coming up, you would hear rocks falling, you would hear feet. But the Prophet doesn't hear anybody come up the cave, doesn't hear any noise, never spoke to a human being for 27 days straight. And then suddenly from inside the cave, he hears a voice saying, Iqra, recite. And the Prophet ﷺ, we all know the story, his reaction was to say, what would you like me to recite? Ma ana biqari. What would you like me to recite? And we all know that, but if you look at it in detail, that is such a strange reaction. Here's how to appreciate the story. Put yourself in the place of the Prophet ﷺ. What would your reaction be if you never heard a voice and then suddenly you find out someone's been sitting there all this whole time and then he suddenly says, recite? Here's one reaction. Iqra, recite. And here you are at your house in Mecca in 2 seconds. You ran back already. You made it back there. Fantastic. Yeah, most people would run. Iqra, I'm not even going to wait to say Iqra. What? I'm out. That's one reaction. The second reaction, people get aggressive. And when people get scared, they get aggressive. So push them against the wall. Who are you? What's your name? How long have you been here? How'd you get up here? All kinds of questions I have for you. So when you put yourself in the place of the Prophet ﷺ, you will see how incredibly amazing his reaction was. That all he did was say, what is it that you'd like me to recite? That's an amazing answer. And Jibreel, you know the story, squeezes him hard, asks him to recite 3 times. And until he left, the Prophet ﷺ never once said, hey, by the way, who are you? What's your name? How'd you get it here? Why are you giving me this message? What does it mean? Excellent. Why did you squeeze me? It shows you the superb manners of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the difference between a story and its details. Here's another one. Everybody knows when the Prophet ﷺ was attacked at the Ta'if and he was pelted with the stones and rocks by the little boys and the slaves, he went and he rested at his vineyard. And it belonged to the sons of Rabi'a, Shayba and Utbah ibn Rabi'a. And they sent the servant Addas with the dates or the grapes for the Prophet ﷺ. Now everybody knows that story, but no, we want to stop and pause and look at the names involved in the story. And when you look at the names, you find something amazing. Utbah and Shayba, the sons of Rabi'a, these are people who just a few days ago, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, when they put the intestines on the back of the Prophet ﷺ while he was praying at the Kaaba, then the Prophet ﷺ made dua against them. He said, Allahumma alayka bi Quraysh. Allahumma alayka bi Quraysh. It's basically like, oh Allah, deal with the Quraysh. And he said it 3 times. And the Quraysh, the leaders who were there laughing so hard, they got scared because he's a truthful person and he's making dua at the Kaaba and he's oppressed. And they used to revere the Kaaba. So now he says by name, he mentions 7 of them. And he begins, Allahumma alayka bi Abi Jahl. Then Allahumma alayka bi Utbah ibn Rabi'a. Allahumma alayka bi Shayba ibn Rabi'a. Those 2 names, a few days later, they're the ones who sent the grapes for him at the vineyard with their servant. What does that tell us then? When you look at it specifically, these 2 people, they heard him make dua against them. So they were at the pinnacle, at the peak of animosity between them and the Prophet ﷺ. And yet, they still sent him the grapes. What do we learn? We learn, we can just now see what a bad situation and a bad state the Prophet ﷺ was in. He was so fatigued, he was so bleeding, he was so injured that 2 of his staunchest enemies at the peak of animosity felt bad for him. That gives you a visual of what situation he was in. And you only got that visual after you got the details. That's what we're going to be learning in Desert Rose, Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ with the one and only Kamal Elmekki. See you soon. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.